Hi folks, this is Selim. Today I'm going to be playing Space Engineers. Specifically, I'm going to be demonstrating a method for playing the scenario Crashed Red Ship. This is one of the preloaded scenarios that comes with the game. I'm just going to do this as a little demonstration of one possible way to start this scenario. I don't like those timestamps, they overlap on my UI. Okay, inventory size, I'm going to run it times 10, just to make the video shorter. We'll turn off auto healing, auto saved. Yeah, that sounds good. Alright, I'll just let this load and we'll come back. Alright, and here we are. Hopefully this is recording at an okay frame rate. It's not going to be too laggy. This is the first time I've recorded a video using Fraps, so I'm also playing from a laptop, which limits us a little bit. Alright then, this is the red ship which has crashed. There are a number of things you could do with this wreck. There's a great deal of resources tied up in it. There are a few bottlenecks, a few limited resources which you do have to manage in order to invest them properly to make the game viable. Now, as this is of course survival mode, this game is only really viable when you have both an assembly and a refinery. They create a self-perpetuating loop basically that allows you to keep living. I'm going to go ahead and pull the uranium out of this reactor and rename it so that I know I've done it. There is a mirror reactor on the other side here which I will do the same with. This ship comes with 3 large reactors. We're only going to need one of them to run some basic life support duties, so we'll shut this one down too. Alright, that's the reactors dealt with. We're now going to go and power up the reactor that we will be using and charge our suit. We only able to charge here for the moment. This is also all the uranium we have. There's no more anywhere on the ship. Alright, and with power comes gravity. I don't normally play this scenario with gravity, I shut it down to conserve power. In this case we will keep it, it'll make it go quicker, but I'll dial it right back. Lets us run about, but uses a lot less power. Okay, 7 hours. Can live with that, but it's time to get started. Now, as I said, there are a great many things you could do with this ship. You could cut off a nacelle and one of these wing parts and refit it to fly independently. You could reposition the thrusters and repair the front end, modify the original design. I'm going to go ahead and create a base, however, with assemblies and refiners, because we have no more uranium, so we're going to have to go and get some at some point. We'll get our bar set up here. Cockpit 3, small reactor. We have our armor block. We need assembly refinery, small cargo chest. And then the tools grinder and blowtorch. Alright, yeah, the reason I was setting that up actually was I was going to grind up on these lights. The lights lag me out a bit, if I'm honest. I probably should have turned them off. Lighting in this game has still not been optimized fully. It's not very friendly to your graphics card. These interior lights are not so bad, I must say. They cast no shadows, and they're not catastrophic. The spotlights, however, that you can mount to ships, as well as the suit headlamp, they both use a different lighting engine, I guess. They cast shadows, and it is not friendly at the moment, so unless you have a high-end rig, don't be casting any shadows. Okay, so lighting's off. I'll reduce power consumption a bit as well. I'm going to take these because they're an easy source of construction components. And they're not hidden behind other parts. I'm also going to go ahead and grab a couple of interior plates. Take those construction components too. We'll take some small steel tubes. Be careful not to take the metal grids off these ramps, because you don't need them, not for a while, and you don't know where to put them, so they're just going to tie up your inventory. Like I said, I'm playing on 10 times at the moment, but use any realism mode you like. I've done this on 1 times a couple of times. There is enough power to keep you going, but for the purposes of the video, I figured everything's just going to be faster done this way. Alright, we're grinding this reactor now. I'm not really after the steel. What I want here are the computers. We've got the motors as well and a few reactor components. That'll work. Now, computers are one of these bottleneck resources I talked about. There's only a limited number of computers on the ship, and disassembling computers is your only source of silicon. So when you move ahead to build your first mining ship and such, you're going to want to remember that you need enough computers to strip. Otherwise you're going to be out mining with the hand drill. And I came up with these techniques mainly to avoid having to do any hand drill mining. I tend to move out of the wreckage straight into my small first miner. I'm going to try and pick a spot to put a small base down. Somewhere we're going to put a refinery and an assembler. Just going to see what the grid looks like. I'm going to try and rotate the ship after I place this to... Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll bring it up here. So I'm going to assume you want to put a base on the surface of the asteroid or something. Coming up here we'll get a nice grid position. There we go. Alright, so we'll put a little base here. I'm not going to weld anything right now. Welding is something you can do afterwards when you have time. At the minute, uranium is running down. Part of the reason is the big red ship is running large reactors designed to move a big heavy mass. It's not very efficient just as a means of life support. So we want to get out into a small reactor-driven situation as quickly as possible. Which we will do now. The reactor. We'll go ahead and unload everything we've got into there. See, we already have half the reactor components. There go all the computers. Gonna need more construction components. We'll need a few grids. The beauty of building this is all the pieces you need come out of the big reactors just in unpleasant bulk amounts. So much of this is an exercise in contriving what to do with the junk, because I don't like leaving it floating around. So one of the things we're going to do is slot up all our builds nice and early. I'm not actually paying attention to any layout here. I should be connecting all these up, so the conveyor doors all match. And for now I'm just sticking this down. You can pay a lot more care when you design your little home. That uploads the steel tubes. Having the refinery up early, I don't use the refinery. I often go directly from the wreckage to a base, self-sufficient, and then build a small mining ship without ever actually refining any ore. You can strip it all down from the wreckage through the disassembly. But placing the refinery early is a beautiful way to dump unwanted steel plates that are cluttering your inventory. It does take 1,100 steel plates, and it's just an excellent way to get rid of them. We don't have a cargo chest at the moment. It's fairly low priority. It uses a display, which is another critical resource for us. We have exactly 10 tied up in the cockpit. The assembler also uses 4 displays, which we will solve, but because of that we're not going to build a chest too soon. Actually, saying that, I will place it now, we just won't finish it too soon because, as I said, we're going to need that display. We'll get to that after. We'll use the assembler as an early storage unit. Once the assembler is done, that gives you a bunch of slots to store finished components. Its output inventory can be used as a makeshift storage container. Okay, this was the reactor we started stripping, right? Yes. Small reactor components. Okay, that's all of those, so it needs construction components now. Oh, I'm very heavy on my camera. It's reactor components. What we will do is they will go back in the reactor. If you're carrying something like this that you've no feasible way to get rid of, put it back on the item. Don't repair it, just empty your inventory. Okay, construction components. I like to take those out of the floor, to be honest. It does give you a bunch of interior plates that you don't really want, but what I'll do is I often create part of the decking out of these interior wall blocks used as a floor like this. That gives us somewhere to dump the plates. Also gives us more living surface without tying up steel plates, which are going to be used when we build our first ship. However, of course, steel plates is not something we are short of. It's just about the only resource that you have in abundance. The last limited resource, of course, is motors. I'm going to go ahead and move this bad boy a bit. Very gently, because this is going to eat our fuel reserves. Mainly I'm just aligning the gravity field with our new platform. I'm going to have to come back off the wall now. So that as our... oh god. The one thing this doesn't do well is pivot around like this. It has only 2 gyros, which is really quite insane for a ship of this size. You know what? I'm just going to roll this. There's nothing especially fragile up the front. I may scrape it on the asteroid a bit, but all we'll be doing is dinging some. You know what, I can't orientate myself, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm sure I'm going to get out there and find it's all completely upside down, but what are you going to do? I usually try and spin it so that the G is going to cooperate with our new, walking on our new base, but I just can't seem to get a reference on where I am. Oh, you know, that's not awful. We'll leave it at that for now. It's a bit tilted, but you get what I was talking about. Okay, yeah, next up, at the front here you've got these 2 upper decks above the corridor we've been running in and out of. on the uppermost deck you've got, as I mentioned, those 2 inadequate gyroscopes, and also the gravity generator. We will leave the gravity there for now, since that's where the power is. But gyroscopes are an excellent source of, well, all sorts of goodies there. Computers, motors, large steel tubes, construction components. They do of course contain copious amounts of steel plates. As I said, that's not something we're limited on, but it is nice to be able to get bulk amounts from one place rather than block busting, which does require a lot of moving around. Let's see, we'll put the construction components in the reactor. The reactor is always your primary goal. Okay, just metal grids left. So we'll go and take a couple of those out of that ramp that I hit earlier. Dampeners on this thing. Must have done, otherwise would have floated away a bit by now. Okay, which one of these did I hit? Yeah, there we go. 4 grids. I'll go ahead while I'm here. Oh, we've got a very full inventory. I'll dump some of that into the refinery. I've been talking about dumping resources into a half-finished build, but I haven't actually been doing it. It is very different when you're talking as well as playing. I've never realised quite how disconcerting that can be. Yes, I was trying to roll the ship a little there to fix that slight misalignment on the grid, but of course I burned out the gyros, didn't I? That's fine, I don't care. Once the power's moved, you can move your gravity up to your platform anyway. Then it's perfectly square. Obviously this is a very strange, compact little platform. And as previously mentioned, no regard paid for hatch locations, but as long as I can load the reactor, I don't mind. And I did clip the cargo can to the top of it. With the advent of a properly functioning conveyor system, you can tuck all these modules together now. If the reactor is connected directly to a refinery, either through the conveyor system or door to door physically, then as uranium comes out of the refinery, it will pump right through into the reactor, which is quite nice. The same way, like I've done there, by putting the cargo can on top of the reactor, I can actually cover up all of the reactor's doors eventually, and it won't be a problem. Not paying attention, I needed to get rid of this material. We'll do the assembler first, since it's the more important one. Yeah, thankfully I've been lugging around so much stuff that we've got just about everything we need for this. We need 20 computers, 4 displays. This welding torch is ridiculously bright. I do hope they give us some sort of option to tone that down, or I do sometimes feel like I should be playing with sunglasses on to avoid retinal damage, but there you go. Especially if you get high intensity lighting, casting some reflections, and then you're welding in the area as well, you can get a full screen washout. But yeah, early alpha optimization's coming. I do know their lighting is early days still. Or it certainly feels early days. But the whole project is. I do love this game, however. It's wonderfully freeform. I love the zero-G aspect to it. As I said, I normally do all stuff with gravity off. I don't use gravity generators unless I'm weaponizing them. Alright, so there goes the gravity, speaking of. It's time to move our life support. We've got a nice finished reactor up there. I've taken all the uranium out of this one. And I'm going to grind off the cockpit and move it up. Now, if you're playing on full realistic inventory, 1x, this stage here is a bit tricky. You can't hold the entire cockpit in your backpack. If you are playing on 3 or 10, you can hold the entire cockpit. On 3x, you do need pretty much the whole backpack. It's about 1,000, not 1,000, it's about, well look, I've got 550 now, I had a bit before. Okay, it's only about 400 litres. You may actually get away with holding it on 1x. But be cautious of that. Because now I've ground off that cockpit, of course, there is no life support in this game. We have no method of charging the suit at the moment. If I was being smart, I would have charged mine before we did this. We're at 56%. But I think we'll be fine. Okay, so this grid is powered now. We'll go ahead and slap down a cockpit. Now if you're observant, you'll notice that the cockpit we ground off in the wreckage of the ship was a cockpit 2, and this is a cockpit 3. It's a marvellous thing, and it makes this entire scenario viable, really. It's more or less identical. The model has a few less screens on it, and it uses 6 less displays. So when we broke down the other one, we got 10 displays out, and this one takes 4. The other components are all identical, but it leaves you with a surplus of displays, which is beautiful, because there are no more displays on this wreck, and we're going to need them. We need 4 for the assembler, we need 1 for the storage chest, you're then going to need another 10 for a small ship cockpit. So what you do, of course, is complete the assembler, and then disassemble computers in order to then assemble displays. It's quite a long process. It's not especially tricky as long as you follow the procedure. Okay, there we go, back to 100%. Our fuel time, 0 seconds, it's infinity at the minute. Whilst charging our suit, it's about 33 days, I think it said. So moving to this single small reactor, even versus single large reactor, does massively extend your life. There go the displays into that. We need 20 computers. Now computers can be got in reactors, thrusters. In thrusters you have to take off the thruster components first, and they are huge. Did I get all the computers out of these? Yes. Yes, okay, that's all I did. Oh yes, there is another access into this upper floor here. We can go down a vertical pass back down to the corridor. Okay, we need to hit... yeah, I've forgotten which reactor I started breaking. That one. Okay, so that one's already had its computers taken. They were ahead of the reactor components we needed, so we've had and used them. That means we want this one. Of course, the one in the cockpit's now available for harvesting as well. So we will hit this one. Now, when you're hitting the large reactor for computers, you do get 200 steel plates come off the front, which is a bit of a pest. Yeah, ideally, you want to stop a bit more precisely than I did. Try not to take the reactor components off. You can actually, once you've ground a bit too far like that, you can drop the stuff you did want, reapply the stuff you didn't want, and then pick up the stuff you did want. These are little tricks that can be helpful if you're playing on a realistic inventory mode. You don't want stuff floating away. If you're working with the gravity generators off, you do have a lot of time to strip this down and move your life support out. It does not need to be a rush process. You can take hours about it, probably even days. Yeah, that should be all the computers we needed for this. Yes, it was. Now, of course, we have a storage. Because you know that I have a lot of junk built up that can't go into any of our builds right now. That goes in here. Still have one display over. We need another 9 for our first small ship. Alright, now that the life support and the assembler are out here on the platform, they're both powered up and ready. That is basically the first step you need to survive. We now have a way to keep ourselves alive while we break all this down. So I'll end this first video here and I'll do a second with the next step. Take care guys. Bye.